Namaskar and welcome to your daily UPSC news analysis for the 13th of May, 2025. Today we're diving deep into the day's most crucial current affairs. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding what truly matters for your exam. We'll break down complex issues, clarify fundamental concepts, and most importantly, pinpoint their relevance for your mains paper, all with a distinct Indian perspective. So let's begin.
Indeed. The 13th of May presented a compelling set of developments, both within our nation's immediate strategic sphere and on the broader global stage. For those preparing for the UPSC, the key is to move beyond just knowing what happened and to truly grasp the why behind these events, their implications for our policies, and, how they connect to larger themes in governance, international relations, and our economy.
Absolutely. And we're starting with a really significant item concerning our national security. Operation Sindoor and the Prime Minister's address regarding the situation at the line of control. Now, to get this context, it's important to recall the ceasefire agreement of 2003 and the persistent shadow of nuclear coercion in our region. This backdrop is essential for understanding the events following the deeply regrettable terror attack in Pahalgam on the 7th of May, where we lost 26 innocent civilians. That tragedy, as we know, led to Operation Sindoor.
Precisely. The Pahalgam attack acted as a trigger, you could say. Operation Sindoor was India's immediate response, and the Director General of Military Operations, or DGMO, level talks between India and Pakistan, well, they represent the established channel between our militaries to manage situations and prevent escalation.
Right.
So the Prime Minister's address on the 13th wasn't an isolated statement. It was a key moment in this unfolding sequence of events.
Correct. And in that address, the Prime Minister articulated several firm points. While he indicated a pause in Operation Sindoor, he made it clear this wasn't a complete cessation. He also very clearly stated India's stance against the threat of nuclear blackmail. Furthermore, he asserted in no uncertain terms that India draws no distinction between terrorists and the states that harbor and support them, a very direct message intended for Pakistan, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. That explicit linkage, state sponsors with terrorist actions, it marks a significant hardening of India's public position. Moreover, by referencing the surgical strikes of 2016 and the Balakot airstrikes of 2019, the Prime Minister emphasized the continuity of India's policy. Zero tolerance towards terrorism and our demonstrated willingness to take preemptive action against terror threats originating beyond our borders.
And the conditions for any future dialogue were also very clearly laid out. Discussions would exclusively focus on the issue of terrorism and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. This signifies a notable shift in the framework for engagement, doesn't it? Interestingly, alongside this firm rhetoric, there were also reports of an understanding reached between the Indian and Pakistani DGMOs regarding a reduction in troop presence and a commitment to upholding the ceasefire. A bit of de-escalation occurring alongside the strong messaging.
That illustrates the nuanced nature of statecraft, really. While political pronouncements convey national resolve, maintaining communication through military channels like the DGMO talks is crucial for preventing unintended escalation. This agreement provides a vital safety valve during periods of heightened tension.
Okay. Now, things take a slightly more, let's say, internationally flavored turn with a claim by the U.S. President Trump suggesting he played a role in averting a potential nuclear conflict. Notably, Prime Minister Modi made no mention of these assertions in his address. What should we infer from this silence?
Well, the Prime Minister's non-acknowledgement is quite telling, I think. India has consistently maintained that its issues with Pakistan are bilateral. They're to be resolved within the established frameworks, like the Shimla Agreement. By not addressing these third-party claims, especially those made in such a manner, India reaffirms its commitment to this long-standing principle. It avoids setting a precedent for external involvement in what we consider a matter between our two nations.
That makes absolute sense. It ties directly into the concern, highlighted in our sources, regarding third-party mediation and India's firm commitment to resolving matters bilaterally. So, taking a slightly wider view, we also need to consider the relevant actions taken by our government. We have the establishment of the surgical strike doctrine and the Balakot doctrine, which have shaped India's strategic response. Additionally, the ongoing consideration of potentially reevaluating the Indus Waters Treaty sends a very strong signal, in my opinion.
Indeed. The potential reevaluation of the Indus Waters Treaty underscores the multifaceted approach India is taking, linking water security directly with our national security concerns. This, coupled with the continuous modernization of our defense capabilities and the active diplomatic efforts to isolate Pakistan on the global stage regarding terrorism, it paints a comprehensive picture of India's strategy.
Now, for all our UPSC aspirants listening, let's focus on the mains relevance here. Cross-border terrorism, as we know, is a recurring and significant challenge. This situation throws into sharp relief the delicate balancing act a nation must perform between maintaining its credibility in the face of such attacks and the very real dangers of escalation, including the ever-present nuclear risk in our neighborhood.
Precisely. These events underscore the inherent complexities. Managing a volatile border with a nuclear-armed neighbor, it's tough. The strategic imperative of demonstrating resolve while simultaneously avoiding a conflict with potentially catastrophic consequences is a central challenge for our policymakers.
And the implications extend across various domains. Politically, it reinforces the narrative of a strong and decisive national security posture. Economically, we even saw a positive reaction in the markets, with reports of the Sensex Nifty experiencing a surge following indications of de-escalation, around 4%, I think.
That's right.
And diplomatically, it highlights the tightrope walk India navigates between its aspiration for an independent foreign policy and the realities of global power dynamics.
What's particularly noteworthy here is the interconnectedness of these domains. A security-related event on our border has direct, tangible effects on our economy and India's standing internationally. The positive market response could suggest a degree of confidence in the government's handling, at least in the immediate aftermath.
We must also touch upon the aspects of governance. The inherent tension between the need for transparency in government actions and the imperatives of national security. It's always present in such sensitive situations. And the unfortunate instance of the Foreign Secretary facing unwarranted criticism online. Well, it really highlights the challenges of managing public discourse during times of national security concerns, the whole social media aspect.
Absolutely. The misuse of social media platforms to target public officials underscores a significant governance challenge. Maintaining respectful public discourse and preventing misinformation, especially during national security crises. It raises important questions about responsible digital citizenship, doesn't it?
It really does. So as we look towards the future, what are some potential ways forward here? Our sources point to several key areas. Strengthening the existing behind-the-scenes communication channels at the DGMO level. Reinforcing the principle that these issues are best resolved bilaterally within the framework of the Shimla Agreement. Maintaining a robust deterrent capability while exercising strategic restraint to avoid unnecessary escalation, and, crucially, enhancing public awareness to effectively counter misinformation.
These are indeed vital steps. Institutionalizing robust crisis communication mechanisms is essential to prevent misunderstandings. Reaffirming the importance of bilateralism aligns with India's strategic autonomy. Maintaining a credible deterrent alongside a commitment to restraint ensures our security without unduly raising risks. And fostering public awareness is crucial for a responsible and informed national discourse.
Right. And for your prelims focus, some key points to remember. Operation Sindoor, which commenced on the 7th of May, 2025, the tragic Pahalgam attack, the long-standing 2003 ceasefire agreement, the roles and functions of the DGMOs, the historical significance of the 1972 Shimla Agreement, and of course the controversial claims made by President Trump. Now let's turn our attention to another critical area, India's stance at the World Trade Organization concerning agricultural minimum support prices. We all understand the basics. The WTO governs global trade, and MSP is a crucial safety net for our farmers.
Exactly. And understanding the WTO's agreement on agriculture, often called the AOA, is fundamental here. This agreement covers various aspects: domestic support measures, which include subsidies like MSP market access, export competition. The AOA also establishes what are known as de minimis limits. These allow developing countries like India to provide agricultural subsidies up to 10% of the total value of their agricultural production.
And this is where the core of the issue lies, isn't it? At the WTO meeting in Geneva on May 13, 2025, India firmly reiterated its commitment to MSP-based procurement, crucial for ensuring national food security. Importantly, India also invoked the Peace Clause, which originated from the 2013 Bali Agreement, in relation to its rice procurement because it had exceeded the established de minimis limits.
Right, the Peace Clause, it provides a temporary safeguard, basically. It protects developing countries' food stockholding programs from legal challenges at the WTO, even if their subsidy levels technically breach the agreed limits. But, and this is crucial, it's not a permanent solution. India is rightly advocating for a more lasting resolution.
Precisely. India has been quite vocal in its critique of the current WTO regulations, arguing that they disproportionately disadvantage developing nations when it comes to food stockpiling and providing necessary subsidies to their farmers. The focus of India's efforts is on securing a permanent solution that would ensure the protection of vital food security programs in developing countries.
India's position strongly aligns with the development agenda within the WTO framework. It emphasizes the need for trade rules that consider the unique needs and challenges faced by developing economies, particularly in ensuring food security for large populations like ours.
And this isn't solely about international negotiations. We also need to consider the significant domestic initiatives. Things like the National Food Security Act of 2013, which guarantees access to subsidized food grains. The Bali Peace Clause itself was a significant step forward, and we also have initiatives like the PMAA scheme, aiming to expand MSP coverage to pulses and oilseeds too.
These domestic policies clearly demonstrate India's unwavering commitment to both food security and farmer welfare. However, these policies often intersect and sometimes conflict with the existing WTO regulations. This underscores the critical need for a more equitable and development-oriented global trade framework for agriculture.
So, for your mains examination, the relevance here is quite clear. We're examining the ongoing tension between implementing MSP and adhering to WTO rules. Then there's the inherent bias in subsidy caps that often seems to favor developed nations with their so-called green box subsidies, those supposedly non-trade distorting ones.
Right. Green box subsidies basically support that isn't directly tied to production levels or prices.
And this all feeds into the broader dynamics of a global north versus the global south in agricultural trade practices.
The implications are indeed far-reaching. WTO subsidy limits can directly impact India's ability to operate its public distribution system and maintain essential buffer stocks, crucial for food security for millions. Diplomatically, this issue can create friction with major players like the US and the EU. And of course, the uncertainty surrounding the future of MSP directly impacts the income security and well-being of Indian farmers.
And from an ethical standpoint, we're grappling with the fundamental right to food versus the prevailing international trade rules. There are genuine concerns about equity when WTO norms appear to disproportionately affect the developmental needs of less affluent nations.
Absolutely. This debate touches upon core principles of fairness and equitable development within the global trade system. Are the current rules truly applied equally to countries with vastly different economic realities and developmental priorities? It's a big question.
So what is the likely way forward on this front? India seems strongly focused on negotiating a permanent peace clause at the WTO, leading the G33 group of developing nations. There's also a clear push to reform the WTO's agreement on agriculture itself, perhaps by reclassifying certain subsidies to better reflect genuine food security concerns. And domestically, there's a continuing need to improve procurement efficiency, reduce food wastage, and encourage crop diversification.
Building strong alliances with other developing nations in the global south is also critically important. It strengthens India's negotiating position and helps collectively advocate for a common food security agenda within the WTO.
Okay, and some key prelims pointers here. The WTO's de minimis subsidy limit of 10%, the significance of the peace clause from Bali 2013, India's annual food subsidy amount around 2.28 lakh crore for 2024-25, and a clear understanding of green box subsidies. Now, shifting our focus entirely, let's examine the increasing tensions in the Baltic Sea region, highlighted by a recent NATO naval exercise amidst ongoing concerns regarding Russia. We all know NATO, the significant military alliance based on collective defense.
Yes, and the Baltic Sea region has become increasingly strategically important. It borders several NATO members, plus the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. This geographical proximity makes it a potential flashpoint, especially given the complexities following the conflict in Ukraine. And let's not forget Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, the cornerstone. An attack on one is an attack on all.
Which brings us to Steadfast Defender 2025, reported as NATO's largest military exercise since the Cold War. On May 13, 2025, a significant naval component of this exercise started in the Baltic Sea. Over 20 warships, about 5,000 troops, led by the U.S. 6th Fleet, with participation from Germany, Poland, Finland, Sweden, UK, among others.
This exercise is clearly intended to simulate an Article 5 scenario. It sends a strong message of deterrence to Russia, especially post-Ukraine. The sheer scale and nature of it underscore NATO's commitment to the security of its Baltic members.
And Russia, predictably, responded with its own naval drills near Kaliningrad. So we're seeing this direct mirroring of military activities, which inevitably elevates the stakes in the maritime domain. What's particularly noteworthy here is the full participation of both Sweden and Finland, their first time in a NATO exercise as full members. That's a rather significant shift in Northern Europe's security architecture, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It is indeed historically significant. Both Sweden and Finland maintained neutrality for so long. But Russia's actions in Ukraine prompted a fundamental reassessment of their security postures, leading them to join NATO. Their full participation signals their complete integration into the alliance's collective defense framework.
And all of this aligns with broader strategic initiatives, doesn't it? We've seen Sweden and Finland join NATO formally in 2023-24. NATO strengthening its eastern flank presence, especially in sensitive areas like the Suwalki Gap, increased U.S. EUCOM deployment since 2022, and deeper EU-NATO cooperation against hybrid threats.
These initiatives reflect a concerted effort by the Western Alliance to bolster its security architecture in response to perceived threats from Russia. The focus isn't just conventional military deterrence. It also encompasses countering non-kinetic threats like cyber attacks and disinformation.
For Armenians aspirants, this situation highlights a critical security dilemma. While NATO expansion is seen as defensive by members, Russia perceives it as a provocation, potentially fueling a military buildup cycle. The close proximity of these large exercises in the Baltic also raises the real risk of unintended escalation. And the shift away from neutrality. It does feel like we are entering a new phase of East-West dynamics, almost like a new Cold War feel.
The implications are broad. Geopolitically, it strengthens NATO deterrence, but also polarizes relations with Russia further. Maritime security-wise, strategic choke points like the waters around Kaliningrad become areas of heightened tension. Even global energy supply chains could be at risk, given potential threats to critical undersea infrastructure.
And from India's perspective, there's a concern. A potential increase in global oil and shipping costs due to these rising tensions. It also puts increasing pressure on India's carefully balanced neutral diplomatic stance.
Indeed, India relies heavily on energy imports and global trade. Rising costs and increased geopolitical polarization present significant challenges for our foreign policy objectives.
So what are the potential ways forward here? Our sources suggest reviving dialogue channels in the Baltic OSCE, Nordic platforms maybe. Enhancing crisis communication mechanisms directly between NATO and Russia seems vital to prevent miscalculations. And ultimately, balancing credible deterrence with genuine diplomatic efforts while promoting adherence to international maritime norms like UNCLOS.
Promoting multilateral norms and keeping communication channels open are essential for managing tensions in the Baltic Sea and preventing unintended conflicts.
Okay, and for your prelims focus in this section, NATO membership is now 32, Finland joined in 2023, Sweden in 2024. Remember Article 5 invoked only once post 9/11? The strategic Russian exclave of Kaliningrad, and the scale and purpose of the Steadfast Defender 2025 exercise. Now let's turn our attention to a natural event. The eruption of Mount Ibu in Indonesia and the subsequent raising of the volcanic alert level. Indonesia sits right on the Ring of Fire, very active volcanically.
Yes, its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire makes Indonesia one of the most volcanically active regions globally. Many active volcanoes, including Mount Ibu on Halmahera Island, a stratovolcano known for explosive activity. Indonesia has a well-defined 4-level volcanic alert system to manage these risks.
And on May 13, 2025, Mount Ibu erupted, sending a substantial ash column about 5,000 meters up. This prompted authorities to raise the alert to level 4, the highest, and order evacuation within a 7-kilometer radius. This followed months of increased seismic activity.
That increase in seismic activity and gas release served as clear precursors. Fortunately, it allowed authorities to take precautions, like evacuations. The use of drones and satellite monitoring by Indonesia's volcanology agency is crucial for tracking the volcano's behavior and assessing hazards.
It's reassuring those systems are in place. Our sources highlight the role of PVMBG for monitoring and early warning, BNPB for evacuations and relief, and the community preparedness programs, strengthened after the 2010 Mount Merapi eruption, plus international cooperation with USGS, Japan's JMA.
These multi-layered initiatives, from scientific monitoring to community preparedness, are absolutely essential for mitigating risks in such a prone region.
For Maine's relevance, this event highlights challenges in disaster preparedness, especially with difficult terrain and limited infrastructure. Also, the environmental impact of ashfall, health risks from ash inhalation, and the displacement of people and livelihoods, all critical considerations.
Beyond local impacts, eruptions can disrupt air travel across Southeast Asia due to ash clouds. They can even have temporary effects on global climate patterns cooling due to sulfur dioxide release. Plus, cascading hazards like landslides and floods afterwards.
So looking ahead, what can be done? Strengthening early warning networks with advanced sensors and real-time analysis seems key. Continuing community capacity building training, resilient shelters, integrated risk assessment considering various factors, climate modeling for broader impacts, and of course international support via ASEAN and the UN can play a vital role.
These multifaceted measures aim to build resilience at all levels, from forecasting events better to empowering local communities to respond effectively.
And for prelims, remember Mount Ibu's location on Halmahera Island, the Ring of Fire significance, key volcanic gases like Esohiro, and the meaning of Indonesia's Alert Level 4. Now let's shift to a strategic development in energy. The expansion of the India-Russia nuclear deal for Kudankulam reactors 5 and 6. Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu is crucial, built with long-standing Russian collaboration.
Indeed, Kudankulam is a cornerstone of our nuclear energy program, and collaboration with Russia's Rosatom has been ongoing for decades. Nuclear power is vital for diversifying our energy mix and reducing fossil fuel reliance as we aim for net zero emissions.
And on May 13, 2025, this partnership strengthened with a significant agreement around 50,000 crore for Units 5 and 6 at Kudankulam. Rosatom will supply fuel, equipment, and expertise. Construction expected to start early 2026, completion around 2032. This really underscores India's continued strong nuclear cooperation with Russia, even amidst the current complex global geopolitics.
This agreement indeed reaffirms the robust strategic partnership between India and Russia in the crucial energy sector, especially nuclear power. India's Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, NPCIL, will operate these new units under the Department of Atomic Energy's oversight.
This development isn't in isolation, of course. We have a long-standing civil nuclear agreement with Russia from 1988. Our Domestic Atomic Energy Act of 1962 provides the legal framework. India's overall nuclear policy emphasizes autonomy, peaceful use, and indigenous tech development. Plus, we have similar civil nuclear deals with other countries.
These agreements and our policy demonstrate India's commitment to expanding nuclear power capacity while adhering to high safety and security standards. The emphasis on indigenous tech is also key for long-term energy independence.
For our mains aspirants, this development raises several key issues. Public concerns about nuclear safety are always significant. There's the question of dependency on foreign sources for fuel and technology, and the ongoing challenges of nuclear waste management and liability in case of accidents.
Right. While nuclear power offers benefits for energy security and climate action, these challenges, safety standards, import dependency, waste management, need proactive and transparent handling.
On the positive side, these two new reactors add significant capacity, about 2,000 megawatts, a substantial contribution to energy security and decarbonization efforts. It also reinforces the important geopolitical India-Russia relationship. Ethically, public consent and environmental considerations are paramount. Lessons from Fukushima must continue to inform safety protocols.
Ensuring robust regulatory oversight by the AERB, boosting indigenous R&D, maintaining open public dialogue, all crucial for sustainable growth of India's nuclear sector.
So the way forward involves strengthening the regulatory framework, pushing indigenous R&D, fostering transparent public discussions, and maybe diversifying international partnerships long-term. For prelims, remember Kudankulam Units 5 and 6 details, 1,000 MW each, VVR reactors, Rosatom and NPCIL roles, and India's nuclear target, aiming for 22 GW by 2031. Now let's turn across the Atlantic. The U.S. decision to lift key sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven crude oil reserves, as we know.
Yes, but despite vast reserves, Venezuela's oil production plummeted in recent years. A mix of factors. U.S. sanctions, mismanagement within the state oil company PDVSA, a lack of investment. PDVSA, Petróleos de Venezuela S.A., was hit hard by stringent U.S. sanctions imposed back in 2019, aiming to pressure President Maduro.
But on May 13, 2025, the U.S. made a significant move, lifting several key sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector. This shift allows U.S. companies and third-party nations to buy Venezuelan crude again. The stated reason: progress Venezuela has reportedly made in electoral reforms.
This lifting of sanctions is framed as conditional by the U.S., directly linked to demonstrable progress in implementing electoral reforms for fairer, more transparent elections in Venezuela. The hope is this relief incentivizes further democratic reforms.
And this decision is expected to significantly impact global energy markets. PDVSA projects a notable rebound in its oil production. Plus, countries like India and China, historically significant importers of Venezuelan crude, might increase purchases, especially given current global oil market complexities.
The potential increase in Venezuelan crude exports could indeed help alleviate some upward pressure in global oil markets, which have seen considerable volatility recently due to geopolitical tensions, especially in the Middle East.
This isn't the first easing we've seen. Remember the limited waiver for Chevron in 2022 allowing some operations. Plus, international mediation efforts, like the Mexico talks, played a role in encouraging these reforms in exchange for potential sanctions relief. For India, it's interesting. Our state-owned refiners were big buyers previously. They'll now be evaluating re-entry.
For India, diversifying crude oil import sources is always a strategic imperative, especially with a volatile global energy landscape. Renewed availability of Venezuelan crude could offer another significant option.
For Mainz, this Venezuela situation highlights its oil dependency and how geopolitical shifts impact global energy dynamics. It also raises ethical questions about the genuineness and sustainability of the electoral reforms that led to this sanctions relief.
The lifting of sanctions also has broader implications for OPEC plus BUM, potentially reducing its leverage depending on how much Venezuelan production rebounds. It also shifts U.S. relationships with Middle Eastern countries.
Impact-wise, for India, it could mean better energy security via diversification. Globally, maybe temporary easing of crude prices. Though there are environmental concerns, more fossil fuel supply might slow the clean energy transition.
Using sanctions as a diplomatic tool and the complexities of oil governance in places like Venezuela transparency, corruption issues are also important governance aspects to consider.
So, the way forward. Sustained monitoring of Venezuela's reforms, continued energy diversification for India, OPEC plus coordination for market stability, and Global South solidarity for equitable energy access. For prelims, remember PDVSA, the 2019 sanctions timeline, Venezuela's huge reserves, 300 billion barrels, the 2022 Chevron waiver, and how Brent crude prices react to such news. Now let's turn to a concerning global trend highlighted in a recent UN report, the rise of digital authoritarianism.
Right, digital authoritarianism. It's basically governments using digital tech to monitor, control, and repress citizens. Think internet shutdowns, facial recognition for mass surveillance, social media censorship, AI-driven misinformation.
And this isn't hypothetical. Institutions like the UN Human Rights Council and Freedom House track this. Plus, concerns exist about potential misuse of digital public infrastructure frameworks, like our own India stack, if safeguards aren't robustly implemented.
The recent UN Human Rights Office report from May 13th paints a worrying picture. Findings suggest over 70 countries use spyware. AI-powered censorship and misinformation in elections are increasing, a record 170 internet shutdowns globally in 2024.
And in response, the UN is calling for a legally binding global framework for AI and surveillance technologies. Underscores the urgent need for international cooperation.
It indeed does. Digital tech offers immense potential, but also poses significant risks to human rights and democracy if not properly governed.
Domestically, India has the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, DPDP Act 2023. Aims to safeguard personal data but includes government exemptions. Globally, efforts exist for AI ethics guidelines via OECD G20. We also have the important 2020 Supreme Court ruling in Anuradha Bhasan versus Union of India, affirming the right to internet access. And while India Stack and Aadhaar are praised for inclusion, concerns about potential misuse for surveillance persist.
Striking that delicate balance between national security imperatives and protecting civil liberties in the digital realm. It's a key challenge for governments worldwide, including ours. Transparency and accountability are crucial for public trust.
For Maine's relevance, this issue brings forth the fundamental tension: state security versus individual civil liberties in a digital world. Algorithmic bias in AI is a growing concern, as is the lack of robust, universally accepted global regulations in this fast-evolving tech landscape.
The rise of digital authoritarianism has significant, potentially detrimental impacts on democracy, undermining elections, suppressing dissent. Journalists and activists are particularly vulnerable to state surveillance and digital attacks. This trend also impacts India's international image as it balances digital progress with democratic commitments.
And ethically, we must consider consent, privacy in the digital sphere, and how the digital divide can worsen inequalities, making marginalized groups more vulnerable.
Effectively addressing these challenges needs a comprehensive approach. Maybe advocating for a global digital rights treaty, establishing robust national AI regulations, ensuring transparency in surveillance requests, empowering citizens with digital literacy and encryption, engaging in international dialogues for ethical norms.
Some prelims pointers. Understand what digital authoritarianism means, the significance of the Anuradha Bhasan case, 2020, core provisions of India's DPDP Act, 2023, and the ongoing discussions on an AI and Human Rights Charter, UNG20. Now let's turn to a positive development in West Asia. The announced upcoming visit of the Iranian president to Saudi Arabia, signaling further regional reconciliation. We know the long-standing complex rivalry between these key players.
Yes. The Iran-Saudi rivalry has been a major source of instability in the Middle East for decades, geopolitical competition, sectarian differences. But the China-brokered restoration of diplomatic ties in 2023 marked a very important turning point.
And on May 13, 2025, news broke. Iranian President Raisi is scheduled to visit Riyadh, his first trip since normalization in 2023. The agenda looks promising. Joint infrastructure projects, energy cooperation within OPEC, Yemen conflict talks, facilitating religious tourism. This follows embassy reopenings and restored air links.
This visit signifies a further consolidation of the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Concrete progress on the agenda could significantly boost regional stability and cooperation.
This thaw likely wouldn't have happened without China's mediation in 2023. Both countries also coordinate oil policies within OPEC plus Central. India, with significant interests in the Gulf, has welcomed this détente and is involved in regional infrastructure projects. There's also broad international support from the UN, Arab League.
The involvement of external actors like China and widespread international support underscore the global interest in de-escalating tensions between these influential regional powers.
For Maine's relevance, while positive, it's important to acknowledge a persistent trust deficit likely remains. Sectarian tensions simmer, and potential external interference is always a factor.
Despite progress, the deep-seated historical issues fueling the rivalry won't disappear overnight. Sustained dialogue and confidence-building measures are essential for long-term stability.
Nevertheless, the potential positive impacts are significant. Reduced Iran-Saudi tensions could mean greater West Asian stability, a more stable global oil market, enhanced religious cooperation. For India, this is important for our diaspora security, our energy security, and progress on strategic projects like INSTC and Chabahar Port.
A stable, cooperative West Asia is clearly in India's strategic interest, facilitating trade, investment, and regional connectivity.
So the way forward: institutionalizing dialogue via regular summits, joint working groups, co-sponsoring Yemen peace talks, promoting regional integration, GCC+. India continuing its role as a neutral partner, and preventing sectarian exploitation.
Focusing on shared economic interests and fostering people-to-people connections, like through religious tourism, can be highly effective in building bridges and overcoming historical mistrust.
For prelims, remember the 2016 break in Iran-Saudi ties, China's 2023 mediation, their OIC membership, and the Yemen conflict basics, Iran Houthis versus Saudi Hadi. Now, some welcome news on the economic front. India's trade deficit narrowed as exports surged in April 2025. A trade deficit basically is when imports exceed exports.
Right, and a narrowing deficit is generally positive, suggests improved competitiveness and reduced outflow of foreign exchange.
The latest Ministry of Commerce and Industry report from May 13th showed a significant 14.8% year-on-year increase in merchandise exports in April, hitting $41.2 billion. Import growth was slower, 7.2%, totaling $56.4 billion. This resulted in a trade deficit of $15.2 billion for April 2025. That's down notably from $19.8 billion in April 2024. Strong performers included pharma, engineering goods, electronics, and interestingly, a significant drop in gold imports too, about 17%.
The robust performance in sectors like pharma and electronics suggests government initiatives like PLI are starting to yield positive results. The drop in gold imports also helped narrow the overall deficit.
This positive trend is likely linked to government initiatives. The PLI scheme, the Foreign Trade Policy 2023-28, strategic corridors like IMIC, and ongoing customs reforms for smoother trade.
These policies aim to enhance India's export competitiveness, reduce logistics costs, and facilitate efficient trade flows.
For Maine's relevance, it's still important to acknowledge structural interdependence remains crude oil, advanced electronics. Global economic headwinds and logistics challenges are also potential hurdles.
While the narrowing deficit is encouraging, addressing these dependencies and improving logistics infrastructure are crucial for sustained, robust, export-led growth long-term.
The immediate impact: possibly a stronger rupee, better investor confidence, signaling policy credibility, but we also need to consider broader dimensions: ensuring inclusive growth, benefiting MSMEs, and environmental sustainability.
Indeed, ensuring benefits reach the crucial MSME sector and aligning export policies with environmental goals is important.
So the way forward: continue diversifying export markets, optimize existing FTAs, pursue new ones, EU, UK, Australia, boost MSME exports, ensure a sustainable export policy framework. For prelims, Remember, the April 2025 export value, $41 BN, top sectors, pharma, engineering, electronics, the trade deficit, $15 BN, the gold import drops, 17%, and key PLI scheme sectors. Finally, let's turn to some concerning reports about alleged targeted killings in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, POCO, is a strategically sensitive area claimed by India but under Pakistan's administration. Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Jaish-e-Mohammed Jem are Pakistan-based UN-designated terror groups with a history of attacks in India. Precision strikes usually mean targeted ops with minimal collateral damage.
On May 13th, reports emerged alleging Indian intelligence orchestrated airstrikes, eliminating 5 top Let-Jem commanders inside POK near Muzaffarabad and Bimber. These alleged strikes reportedly used drones and satellite data. Pakistan denied these reports. Indian sources maintained it was a non-escalatory precision hit, no civilian casualties reported.
If accurate, this would be a significant, potentially escalatory development in India's counterterrorism strategy, perhaps indicating a more proactive, assertive approach to cross-border threats.
Such actions would align with India's stated surgical strike doctrine 2016 and the Balakot airstrikes 2019. We also have domestic laws like UAPA and diplomatic efforts for UNSC 1267 listings.
These various measures show India's multifaceted approach, combining potential security operations with legal and sustained diplomatic efforts internationally.
For Maine's relevance, this highlights the persistent challenge of cross-border terrorism and proxy warfare. It also underscores the complexities of international politics, like China's role in blocking UN sanctions sometimes.
Such actions, while potentially disrupting terror leadership, inherently carry escalation risks and can have significant diplomatic ramifications.
Ethically, questions about collateral damage risk and due process versus targeted killings invariably arise in these sensitive scenarios.
Ensuring transparency and accountability is paramount, even in sensitive security ops. Adherence to international norms and laws on force use must be primary considerations.
The likely way forward may be further internationalizing evidence of terror group involvement, enhancing border tech surveillance, improving intelligence coordination, strengthening counter-radicalization measures, continuing engagement with multilaterals like the UN for stronger action against terrorism, maybe pushing for the CCIT. For prelims, remember Let-Jem, the pokey strike context, India claims, Pakistan denies, the UNSC 1267 lists significance, and the NIA's role in counterterrorism.
Ultimately, effectively addressing cross-border terrorism needs a sustained, comprehensive strategy integrating security, diplomacy, and long-term development in affected regions.
Well, that was a truly in-depth analysis of a significant day in news. We've covered a wide range: security, WTO, geopolitics, disasters, energy deals, digital authoritarianism, regional reconciliation, trade, counterterrorism, all from May 13th, 2025. It really underscores just how interconnected these national and global events are, especially when you are diligently preparing for the UPSC examination.
Indeed. Developing a comprehensive understanding of these interconnected issues and the fundamental principles underpinning them is absolutely key to a holistic and effective preparation strategy for the UPSC.
Subscribe for your daily dose of insightful analysis, and please do share your valuable thoughts and perspectives in the comments section below. Don't forget to join our Telegram channel. The link is provided in the description, where you can access detailed news articles related to our discussion today and even test your understanding with a related quiz. Jai Hind.